Should you co-plant microgreen varieties? Written July 29th, 2024 by Garrett Corwin and narrated by Garrett Corwin. What is co-planting? We define co-planting as planting more than one microgreen variety in the same tray. Popular seed suppliers offer mixes with the seeds blended together prior to purchase. For example, True Leaf Market offers a basic salad mix, which includes arugula, broccoli, cabbage, kale, and kohlrabi, all mixed together as seeds. We'll discuss why we would discourage co-planting regardless of a few benefits. First, though, a bit about me. I'm the founder of Piedmont Microgreens, an indoor farm in Durham, North Carolina, where we grow about 400 trays per week with a small team of just 2 full-time employees. Over the past years, we've sold to chefs, wholesalers, schools, and of course, farmers markets. We're also Harmonized GAP certified with the USDA for food safety, which meets the standards required by large distributors and retail partners. I'm also the co-founder of Microgreen Manager, which we'll touch on a bit more at the end. So let's start off with the benefits of co-planting. Weighing seed. Many growers will pre-weigh their seed in small containers before planting. We personally do it. We use pint-sized deli containers. At Piedmont Microgreens, each pint container holds 1 tray's worth of seed. The weight of each seed in each container depends on the specific variety. Before the start of each week, we'll weigh out about 400 trays of seed to prepare for planting. Obviously, I'll just sort of insert a note here that as more and more small scale tools come on the market for microgreen farmers, especially smaller ones doing under maybe 500 trays a week, it reduces the need to pre-weigh your seed, but I'll just leave that there. So we have a mix that we sell, which is a mix of broccoli, cabbage, and kohlrabi. We could weigh out, say, 20 containers of each crop to then plant 60 trays total for the week. When we finish with one variety, we must put away that seed, find the next variety, and check the sowing density, and then repeat the process. However, if we mixed all 3 seed varieties together, we wouldn't waste time switching crops and researching sowing densities. We would reduce the sort of mental bandwidth and physical waste of time changing seed varieties. We could weigh out 60 containers on a single pre-mixed seed blend. The time savings here, however, are minor depending on how many times you're making this switch and how many crops you're planting in a given week. You can find bigger time savings, though, with faster harvesting. The bigger benefit of co-planting is found during harvest. Because your crops are blended together already as they're growing, rather than being in isolation, you don't have to mix them post-cut. So you have to cut the product, put it in a bin, mix the varieties, and then pack that blend. If the crops were co-planted, you could cut the tray and place the blend straight into your containers, which is pretty significant, speaking as somebody who does a lot of blends for our customers. However, let's get into the drawbacks of co-planting. So varied grow times is probably the most notable one. Co-planting is only possible if the crops in the blend have the same or very similar grow time. Obviously, if you're trying to optimize or perfect each crop, if they're off by a day, then one crop will be, in terms of their total grow time, in the perfect scenario, one is going to be perfect and one is going to be 1 day too young or too old. So ideally, they have the same exact desired grow time. An exception here that we've found for our farm after writing this blog is radish. So a blend of 3 radish varieties works well for co-planting. It's the only example we found because, at least for how we do it with Rambo radish, Triton radish, and Daikon radish, we found that a good compromise is that they all take 7 days, 6 or 7 days, I can't remember. Planting 3 radishes together prevents any one variety from growing taller and shading out the other varieties. However, a blend of Genovese purple and lemon basil sounds cool. They're all basils, but really lemon basil grows about a week faster than Genovese and purple, so it doesn't quite work. A poor co-planting candidate would be a mix of really different varieties like celery, which takes about 3 weeks, beet, which takes about 2, and radish, which takes about 1. Celery takes 10 days to germinate as well, so you have to consider both the total grow time, but also how they prefer to germinate and their germination durations. By the time the radish is ready to harvest, 7 days, the celery hasn't even finished germinating yet. So the use cases are limited, and even with similar varieties, there can still be challenges with how each one grows. So yield optimization is another issue. The goal for every aspect of your farming business should be constant improvement, obviously. Co-planting your varieties makes it much harder to run trials and learn about each crop. It complicates the process of gathering yield data, tracking changes, and making improvements. Although you mix the seeds in equal proportions, a particular tray could have, say, 28%, 30%, and 42% of each variety rather than the intended 33, 33, and 33. If you plant each of the three varieties in isolation, you will get a clear feedback loop between sowing density, grow time, yield, and of course quality. So co-planting basically muddies these results. Harvest flexibility. Most farmers offer single varieties and blends. Once you build a progressively larger client roster, you'll get regular orders for both single varieties and the blends that contain those varieties. When we harvest at Piedmont Microgreens, we always start by harvesting the orders for the single varieties first, the solo crops. Once we fill those orders, we move on to the blends containing those varieties. Why? If you run short on a particular variety, you can't make up for it by substituting another. Not necessarily. For example, if a chef orders arugula and you run out, you can't replace it with chervil. Yes, you can get close by replacing it with a peppery variety similar to arugula like radish. However, if you run short on a particular variety, you can just adjust its percentage or its percent contribution in a blend. This is one of the safeguards or fallbacks that is advantageous for not co-planting. So, for example, let's say you have a blend of arugula, radish, and mustard. The ideal ratios are 25% arugula, 50% radish, and 25% mustard. If you fill your solo orders for radish, but you have too little left over to make a blend with 50% radish, you can lower that to 40%. Increase the proportions of arugula and mustard to compensate, and the blend will look and taste the same so long as you stay within reasonable bounds. If you make the blend at the ideal ratios and then fill the solo orders for radish afterwards, you'd short your customers with no way to troubleshoot. This relates to co-planting because co-planting reduces your flexibility at harvest time. If all or most of your arugula, radish, and mustard are co-planted, you have fewer options to fill those orders for the individual versions of each. So there are definitely benefits to co-planting. Like I said, after writing this blog, we have found that radish is a good candidate. But beyond that, even broccoli, cabbage, and kohlrabi, which for us are all 10-day grows, 3-day germ times, they're all brassicas, it would really seem like there's a good case to be made to co-plant those varieties for our blend. It still isn't perfect, despite having the same germ method and germ time and total grow time, because broccoli is a lot taller than kohlrabi. Cabbage is somewhere in the middle, so you get kind of shadowing of one crop over the other, which leads to legginess or poor grow parameters for the shorter crops. And then, of course, you have the other issues we already mentioned about flexibility at harvest time. So if you're going to co-plant, I wouldn't say it's a total something you should totally avoid, but I would proceed with a lot of caution and really be careful about what varieties you choose to co-plant. So with that being said, I'll wrap it up with a quick comment about crop planning and order management. If you are farming solo, but you are thinking about adding help, even part-time, even contractor or seasonal, even family members, Microgreen Manager makes that handoff super easy. It shows your whole week in a visual format with tasks your team can actually follow. Whether you're growing 5 trays or 200, it keeps everyone aligned with tasks. Check it out at microgreenmanager.com. There's a 30-day free trial. You can see all the wonderful features beyond crop planning and order management. You can see reports, track disease in your farm, all that good stuff. And if you like it at the end of the 30 days, you can upgrade to a paid version, or you can use the free forever version and use it forever at your leisure. So check it out, microgreenmanager.com. Thanks for listening.